Shannon Sharpe says he's temporarily stepping away from ESPN in the wake of a $50 million lawsuit accusing him of rape. A woman filed suit against Sharpe on Sunday, accusing him of raping her twice.
And that the was about handcuffs, choking, putting on dog collars.
Do you get those at Petco?
The whispers started like a low hum in the distance, gradually amplifying into a deafening roar that swept through newsrooms, social media feeds, and living rooms across the country. Shannon Sharpe, the Hall of Fame football legend turned charismatic television pundit, had found himself at the center of allegations that no amount of charm or sideline banter could deflect. But the most recent twist in this saga? Rumors that Sharpe had withdrawn a substantial fortune from his accounts and vanished, leaving a trail of confusion and unanswered questions in his wake. Was this the calculated move of a man cornered by the mounting legal pressures, or was it a desperate attempt to evade what seemed like an inevitable reckoning?
Are now beginning to bring up past things that have happened with Shannon Sharpe, including a temporary restraining order that was filed against him back in 2010 from a woman that he was dealing with at the time, who accused him of sexual assault. He said in different things. Now, this was dropped. It was dismissed, that restraining.
The speculation surrounding Sharpe's alleged escape has been nothing short of explosive. Reports have surfaced claiming he liquidated assets and made hurried financial transactions in the days leading up to his supposed departure. Sources close to the situation, though unnamed, have whispered about private jets, an exotic, off-the-grid destination, a secluded island perhaps, or some remote corner of the world where extradition laws are murky at best. The very idea of it has captured public imagination. After all, this wasn't just anyone, this was Shannon Sharpe, the man with a booming laugh, a sharp wit, and a seemingly unshakable presence in front of the camera. The notion that he could simply disappear seemed as surreal as it was tantalizing.
His attorney offered that up publicly.
To me, her turning it down shows that it's not a money grab.
No, it shows that it's a bigger shakedown.
But why would a man who once thrived under the spotlight suddenly retreat into the shadows? The answer may lie in the whirlwind of accusations that have engulfed him over the past year. The claims are damning, the lawsuit staggering in both scope and severity. First, there was Michaele Bundy Evans, who resurfaced with allegations that dated back over a decade. She spoke of threats, coercion, and an incident that she says left her irreparably scarred. Then came Jane Doe, the pseudonymous accuser whose lawsuit painted a chilling picture of manipulation and control. Together, these claims formed a narrative that was as shocking as it was unrelenting, and Sharpe's legal team, led by the formidable Lanny J. Davis, was left scrambling to counter the tidal wave of public judgment.
Regular routine was that Shannon then they would.
Why was that relevant?
The release of purported audio recordings only added fuel to the fire. In one clip, a voice alleged to be Sharpe's could be heard making threatening remarks that sent shockwaves through those who listened. "If you say that word one more time," the voice growled, its tone unmistakably menacing. The context of the conversation remains murky, but the implications were clear enough to spark outrage. Critics pounced, dissecting every word, every pause, while Sharpe's defenders scrambled to cast doubt on the authenticity of the recording. Was it real? Was it doctored? The debate raged on, but the damage to Sharpe's public image was undeniable. As the lawsuits piled up, so too did the scrutiny. Sharpe's decision to step away from his high-profile role at ESPN only heightened the intrigue. Officially, he announced it as a temporary break, a chance to focus on personal matters. But insiders whispered that the network had been under immense pressure, both internally and externally, to distance itself from the controversy. Staffers at ESPN were reportedly disgusted by the allegations, with some questioning why the network hadn't acted sooner. The atmosphere, one source claimed, had become unbearable, with tensions running high and trust in Sharpe's ability to represent the brand at an all-time low.
On Easter Sunday, a lawsuit was filed in state court in Nevada against Hall of Fame tight end Shannon Sharpe because he has become such a massive media star, especially in the past few years. The lawsuit is going to attract.
And then there was Tony Buzbee, the relentless attorney representing Jane Doe. Known for his high-profile cases and aggressive tactics, Buzbee was not one to back down easily. He had already proven his mettle in previous legal battles, and now he seemed determined to hold Sharpe accountable. It was Buzbee who released the audio clip that ignited a media frenzy, and it was Buzbee who hinted that more evidence could be forthcoming. The implication was clear: Sharpe's troubles were far from over.
It's a claim against someone alleging that some rights were violated. And in most cases, what's sought is compensation in the form of damages to make up for whatever it is the person did. And there are all sorts of civil lawsuits, car accidents, defamation. We hear about that a lot because people get sued about things that are said about them in media.
Meanwhile, Sharpe's own legal team was mounting a vigorous defense. They released text messages allegedly sent by Jane Doe, messages that they claimed painted a very different picture of the relationship. These texts, they argued, were proof that the dynamic between Sharpe and his accuser had been consensual and even playful. But the public wasn't buying it, not entirely anyway. For every person who rallied to Sharpe's defense, there were two more who saw the messages as irrelevant or even manipulative. The court of public opinion, it seemed, had already reached its verdict, even as the legal battle continued to unfold.
Like the Deshaun Watson cases where there were 20 plus plaintiffs and they weren't really sure who the people were who were making the claims. In this case, Shannon Sharpe knows exactly who it is because there had been, and it's clear from the statement issued by his lawyer, Lanny Davis, there had been some pre-litigation efforts to try to resolve this.
Now, with rumors of his escape gaining traction, the narrative has taken a darker turn. If Sharpe has indeed fled, what does that say about his guilt or innocence? Does it suggest a man running from the truth or merely a desperate attempt to protect himself from what he perceives as a biased system? And what of the accusers, who have been left to grapple with their own sense of justice, slipping further out of reach? The questions are endless, the answers elusive. The media has latched onto every detail, no matter how small, in its quest to unravel the mystery. Speculation about Sharpe's whereabouts has ranged from the plausible to the utterly fantastical. Some have suggested he's hiding out in a private villa owned by a wealthy friend, while others have floated the idea of a clandestine retreat in the Swiss Alps. There are even whispers of offshore accounts and secret identities, though these claims remain firmly in the realm of conspiracy theory. The truth, for now, remains hidden, just like Sharpe himself.
Tony Busby says this is key evidence in our case against Mr. Sharpe, so it will not be coming out. He will not be leaking this.
And saying basically it's going to come out during the trial.
Right.
If there's a trial.
If there's a trial, it will come out, which to me sounds like he's still dangling it over Shannon's head to say, we can meet, we can settle this, or we can go forward into a trial, and then the video is going to come out.
But the most pressing question, the one that looms over this entire saga, is what happens next? Will Sharpe resurface, ready to face the allegations head-on, or will he remain in the wind, a fugitive from both the law and his own legacy? The answer may lie in the details of his past, details that are only now beginning to come to light. Because while the rumors of his escape have dominated headlines, they are far from the only revelations that have emerged in recent weeks. And as the layers of this story continue to peel back, what's becoming increasingly clear is that the scandal surrounding Shannon Sharpe is much deeper than anyone could have imagined. And as the speculation about Shannon Sharpe's alleged escape heats up, a darker, more complex portrait begins to emerge, one that stretches far beyond the immediate headlines and digs deep into a history that seems riddled with troubling patterns. This isn't just about one scandal, one lawsuit, or even one alleged victim. It's about the mounting evidence of a man whose public persona as a charming, larger-than-life sports personality may have been carefully masking years of accusations, incidents, and unresolved conflicts.
The news, Shannon Sharpe. So you guys remember that video that Shannon Sharpe was saying was going to release?
Yes,
That-
it did.
No.
Oh.
The timeline of Sharpe's past allegations is as twisted as it is extensive. Long before the current lawsuits threatened to dismantle his reputation, there were whispers, no, louder than whispers, about aggressive behavior and stormy personal relationships. 2 arrests for physical altercations with women stand out like glaring red flags from the past. In one case, the charges were quietly resolved in mediation, but the details are enough to make anyone's stomach turn. A woman claimed she was physically removed from Sharpe's home during an argument, an act his legal team later brushed off as appropriate and gentle. The imagery of someone being forcibly lifted and ejected from a home doesn't exactly scream gentle, does it? And yet the incident was swept under the rug, leaving no lasting mark on Sharpe's career at the time.
According to reports, that video will not be released. Attorney Tony Busby came out and said that they are not planning to release that video how they were dropping audio because it's a very strong point of their evidence in this case, and they're going to keep it and use it as
In
such.
court.
Yeah. Now, That is interesting because Shannon Sharpe, remember, he kept saying he believes the video was going to come out. He believes the video was going to come out. So there's been a change.
The first arrest, dating back to the mid-1990s, paints an unsettling picture of conflict that escalated rapidly. According to documents from the time, Sharpe and a woman, whose name remains withheld, allegedly became embroiled in a heated argument at his Atlanta residence. What began as a verbal altercation reportedly turned physical, with both parties accusing each other of aggressive behavior. Police were called to the scene, and both Sharpe and the woman were charged with battery. Although the specifics remain murky, one detail stands out. The woman was also charged with property damage after allegedly breaking items in Sharpe's home. Despite the charges, the case never made it to trial. Instead, it was quietly resolved and Sharpe walked away with his reputation intact. But the lack of transparency leaves one wondering, was justice truly served, or was this just the first instance of Sharpe leveraging his status to sidestep accountability?
Another interesting thing too, and this is why I said, I've never seen anybody handle a situation worse than Shannon and his team. After this came out, we would have never known about that so-called video if it wasn't for Shannon Sharpe.
Yes.
Yeah. Shannon jumped out there and revealed that video existed. And he did that for no reason because they wasn't even planning on putting it up.
Then came 2004, another incident, another accusation, and another woman. This time, the claims revolved around Sharpe allegedly lifting a woman to physically remove her from his home during an argument. The woman waited 2 weeks before reporting the incident to the authorities, an act that some speculated was born out of fear or hesitation. When the case finally reached the courts, it was resolved not through a trial, but through mediation, a process that, while legal, often leaves the victim's side of the story unheard. What's alarming is how quickly this incident disappeared from public discourse, buried under layers of legal jargon and carefully worded statements from Sharpe's then attorney. The Fulton County clerk later confirmed the case had been expunged, wiping it from public records as though it had never happened. But erasing it from the record doesn't erase the questions it raises. Questions about power dynamics, influence, and the unsettling ease with which such cases can be swept away.
Once again, I've never seen anybody handle a situation worse than Shannon and his team. Like they just handled it wrong from the beginning, from the whole beginning.
Yeah, well.
And here's the kicker. These cases never seem to stick. They were like Teflon, sliding right off Sharpe's public image as though they were mere speed bumps on the road to his success. The media's coverage at the time was fleeting, almost dismissive, focused more on his athletic achievements than the allegations against him. It's a stark contrast to today's climate where every detail of his past is being scrutinized under a microscope. But the question remains, how many of these incidents were truly resolved and how many were merely buried beneath settlements, expungements, and media spin? The answers, if they exist, are locked away in court records and behind closed doors, leaving the public to piece together the fragments of a troubling legacy. But that's the thing about unchecked power. It tends to snowball. Fast forward a few years, and another arrest emerges, this time involving a different woman and a similar narrative of conflict turned physical. And just like before, the noise around it faded into the background. Maybe it was his fame, his legal team's finesse, or the sheer force of his charisma that allowed him to bounce back unscathed. Whatever it was, the system seemed to work in his favor, and Sharpe moved forward like nothing had happened. But now, in the harsh light of today's allegations, those old cases feel less like isolated incidents and more like puzzle pieces in a much larger, much darker picture.
They want everything to happen immediately.
Absolutely.
Like, it's
Insta,
only
that-
Thursday.
It's instant. They want everything to instantly happen. It doesn't work like that.
The righteous people on Reddit, baby, they are dissecting and divulging right now.
And then there's McKelly Bundy Evans. Her story, though resurfacing years later, feels like a precursor to everything unfolding now. She paints a picture of a relationship marked by control and fear, culminating in an incident that she claims left her emotionally shattered. Her decision to file for a restraining order back then was a bold move, one that could have brought serious consequences for Sharpe, but instead of justice, what followed was a chilling series of events that only deepened her sense of vulnerability. Evans has alleged that her address was leaked shortly after she went public with her claims, leading to harassment and threats that forced her to retreat even further into silence. Imagine the terror of hearing someone scream insults outside your door with your family inside and feeling utterly powerless to stop it. Whether or not Sharpe was directly involved in these incidents remains unconfirmed, but the sheer possibility casts a long shadow.
Alrighty, y'all. So the Shannon Sharpe ESPN does he still keep his job conversation is beginning to, I was going to say beginning to happen, but it's been happening. But I think now it's beginning to get louder because of different things that Attorney Busby has released, including the audios. So right now the conversation is, why is Shannon Sharpe still able to be?
But let's not forget the most damning detail of all, the alleged threats. Evans has claimed that Sharpe explicitly warned her against speaking out, telling her he would ruin her life if she dared to expose him. It's one thing to face allegations of bad behavior. It's another to allegedly weaponize your influence to intimidate and silence someone. This isn't just a story of personal conflict, it's a story about the abuse of power and how easily it can be wielded against those with less of it. And Evans' case is just one thread in this tangled web. Let's talk about Jane Doe, the anonymous accuser, whose lawsuit has brought Sharpe's alleged history of controlling behavior into even sharper focus. According to her legal team, Sharpe's treatment of her wasn't just domineering, it was suffocating. The lawsuit describes a relationship where every aspect of her life was dictated by his demands, where her time and even her body were treated as commodities to be controlled. And when she tried to break free, that, her team claims, is when things turned truly sinister. The lawsuit alleges that Sharpe's response to her attempts to regain autonomy was not just verbal, it escalated into actions that no one should have to endure.
That's how we found out about the lawsuit against Shannon Sharpe. Now, this one has some very strong allegations: sexual assault, sexual battery, assault and battery, intentional infliction of emotional distress. The sexual components obviously give it greater gravity than a car accident or any case based on some sort of negligent slip and fall, something like that, where someone was just being careless.
What's more chilling is the implication that this wasn't an isolated dynamic. Sources close to the case have hinted at a pattern of behavior that stretches far beyond the scope of this one lawsuit. If true, it raises the question, how many others might there be? How many voices have yet to come forward, or worse, have been silenced by fear or intimidation? And then there's the role of money in all of this, a factor that seems to loom over every chapter of this story. Sharpe's financial resources have undoubtedly played a role in how these allegations have been handled over the years. Settlements, mediation, and legal maneuvering have kept many of these incidents from becoming front-page news. But money doesn't just buy silence, it can also buy influence. Sharpe's prominence in the sports world has afforded him a platform that few could rival. And with that platform comes a certain level of protection, a buffer that can make even the most serious allegations seem like mere rumors to be dismissed.
Essence from Atlanta, him refusing to look at the evidence just gives me the impression that he wants plausible deniability, and maybe the evidence should be released so that way he does not deny his actions. I mean, if that was me, I would definitely want to look at the evidence to see what I did and did not do so I can maintain my innocence.
But now that buffer is starting to dissolve. The release of audio recordings, the growing number of lawsuits, and the sheer weight of public scrutiny have created a storm that no amount of money or influence seems able to contain. And yet, Sharpe's legal team continues to fight back, painting his accusers as opportunists and claiming that the relationships in question were entirely consensual. It's a narrative that might have worked in the past, but in today's climate it feels increasingly out of step with the growing demand for accountability. What's perhaps most striking about this entire saga is how it's exposed the cracks in the very system that once seemed to shield Sharpe. The media, once quick to move on from allegations, is now digging deeper, unearthing details that would have likely gone unnoticed just a few years ago. Advocacy groups are amplifying the voices of accusers, ensuring that their stories are heard rather than buried. And the public? They're watching closely, dissecting every new development with a level of scrutiny that Sharpe has likely never experienced before. And yet, even as the walls close in, there's a sense that this story is far from over. What other details have yet to emerge? How many more voices will come forward? And perhaps most importantly, what will justice look like in a case as complex and high profile as this one? This scandal is a mirror reflecting more than just Sharpe's actions. It's exposing the ways in which power, fame, and wealth can distort accountability. But the cracks are widening, and the truth, whatever it may be, is inching closer to the surface. So what do you think? Is this the beginning of the end for Shannon Sharpe, or is there another twist waiting just around the corner? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below, and as always, we'll see you in the next one.